Jules, I briefly described your new feature-length film, but can you tell us about Angela's Shadows?
Angela's Shadow is a film that is based loosely on a first attempt to a novel that I wrote, and it's also part of a trilogy. It's a story about a young woman who's pregnant, who travels back up to her Cree community, but she is haunted by her dead twin.
Interesting.
That's pretty
Not giving too much away, hey? Like many of your films, this one draws on your own personal experiences. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, this one in particular is kind of steered a little bit further away from my own lived experience, but it is about intergenerational trauma and healing. It takes place in 1935. But I've always been taught that Indigenous women are the strength and the backbone of our community. And within this film, there is the story of the matriarchs that are sustaining culture. So I thought that was very important to highlight because of my aunties and my kukum.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a story that I think is still relevant today, even though it takes place in 1930s. It's a story about resiliency.
Very interesting. The film just secured a Canadian distribution and international sales deal. What will that mean in terms of who will get to see the film?
I'm hoping, like, first and foremost, I always have an Indigenous audience in mind. That's who I create film for. So I'm hoping it has a far reach internationally to Indigenous community globally, but also across Turtle Island as well. Like, I'm hoping that we get on some of the big streamers so that people can access it. And also a theatrical release would be really nice near and around Indigenous community. Well, all of this is Indigenous community anyway, but you know what I mean, the urban centers. So I'm hoping that we have a far reach, and I'm really excited about signing on with Motion 58.
Hoping we get a theater show here in Winnipeg as well. We call this Nietzsche Central here in Winnipeg, so fingers crossed for that. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is fresh on many minds, and a lot of your films touch on the impacts of residential school system. And as the intergenerational survivor, what does September 30th mean to you?
I think, for me, it's about us kind of maybe relieving ourselves of that weight of trauma, figuring out who we are without our parents' trauma. And it's also about, I think, for settlers to take accountability for their own action in terms of learning about what happened, because it is really their system that has impacted our community. So I think for me, reconciliation is really about action. And what does that mean? It means that maybe there needs to be some more curriculum change within the educational system. Settler Canadians have to do more work and not rely on us for that emotional labor to explain how that system of oppression has impacted us. But I also think it's an opportunity for discussion and maybe some uncomfortable dialogue, which I think is necessary because that's how things change. But I think it's every day. As Indigenous people, truth and reconciliation is every day. We have to live with it, right? So, yeah.
And really quickly and briefly, where can people watch the film when it's out?
Well, Angela's Shadow right now. Sorry, I don't know what that is outside. I'm in Arizona at a film festival. Sounds like there's a thunderstorm. Angela's Shadow is available or will be available. That is a very good question. I'm not quite sure yet with the new distribution company, but I believe that we're going to have a theatrical release, and then they will have some way for people to access the film through the streamers and so forth.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jules. We really appreciate your time, and we'll definitely keep an eye out for that film.
Thank you. I think you'll enjoy it.